Last season, the Celtics were 64-18, ran roughshod through the Eastern Conference in the playoffs, won the NBA championship in a very convincing fashion. And then like 2 weeks later, they announced the team was for sale. A couple of weeks later, they had re-signed all their guys to multi-year contracts, locking in their core for the next few years. But that team's for sale. Well, I needed to get to the bottom of this, Zena. So we invited Mike Vorkunov, our business of basketball writer, NBA writer extraordinaire, who just wrote about this sale. And he says what a potential Celtics sale tells us about NBA ownership right now. Mike, I need you to tell me what this sale means for NBA ownership, because it's odd to see a championship team go up for sale. And in particular, I mean, is this the fastest turnaround from championship to, hey, the for sale signs on the window?
Crazy.
What it says is that and this is going to be shocking, it's a damn good time to be a person who owns an NBA team. And, there's been a lot of them since 2019. In the last 5 years, no league has had as much ownership turnover like the NBA has. I think this will be the 9th team that will change hands since 2019. The NFL, baseball, and hockey have 10 combined, right? So like that's the pace that this is going at. The Bucks and Mark Lazary sold his controlling stake, I think about like a year and a half after they won the title. But this went on the market 2 weeks after they got that ring, title number 18, time to cash out.
And it was also like right before they re-signed their big players and came up against the second apron. They're going to start seeing some penalties because of that. Given the penalties, the potential financial constraints of re-signing those players, what's the challenge for whoever they do sell to? Like, are they going to be interested in taking on that much of a financial burden on top of potentially paying $6 billion for the Celtics?
Yeah.
Well, it becomes
like you win the sweepstakes to just have a massive bill every year.
Yeah.
And they don't even own TD Garden. So they have to also pay for a place to play. Like, this doesn't feel
Is that coming up with you, Mike?
enticing.
So what you guys are just like, hey, trying to drive this price down, basically.
Basically, yes.
Well, it's actually a twofold problem, right? You're going to have to pay a very large tax bill if you keep this team together. And next season, 25-26, the tax rates, whether you're a repeater team or a team who hasn't repeated in the luxury tax, jump up a lot if you're 20 mil over the luxury tax line. And you have a choice then. Are you going to pay these exorbitant tax rates? And the Celtics will be repeaters. And I think it's like becomes $7.25 for every dollar that you're over. Right. So you're talking about like a little more than 7x for every mil that you're over there, which someone can do the math on me. But I believe generally translates to a lot of money. Right. And then the other question is like, all right, if you don't want to pay this money, and the Celtics are right now projected for over $200 million payrolls each of the next few years because all those signings you guys mentioned, are you going to be the person who buys the Celtics and breaks up a title team? Right. Like Derek White, Kristaps Porzingis, Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum, all under contract for the next few years. I think I'm forgetting someone else on top of that, but you're going to have to make a decision whether you want to pay those taxes or whether you want to deal with the second apron restrictions, which might include a frozen pick, or you're going to be the one who says, hey, we got to start over and dip under.
I think that the repeater tax that they're hoping for is the repeat champion tax that goes on the sale price, right? Like locking in this team, you think, hey, look, valuable franchise already. They just won a title, so it's a good team. So you're not buying on the ground floor. This is not the Charlotte Hornets that you're purchasing. You're purchasing a team that has history already as a championship level team, just had a championship last year, and maybe gets a second one this year. And to be honest with you, like there's no reason why this team isn't going to be in contention for the remainder of these guys while they're under contract. So, I understand like the thinking they're locking these guys up and then making the move to sell. They're the first team to go for sale under this new TV deal. And we've watched, like we just said, the number keeps going up for these franchise valuations. I mean, Mark Cuban, in the time that he owned the Mavericks, made quite a bit of money in return on his investment. So, do they like internally, do people see this as the Celtics price is going to be, everything's going to settle around it, or this is just maybe the launching off point of the next round of a big NBA team growth? I'm assuming it's going to affect the expansion prices too.
Yeah, this is going to be an interesting one. It might be have an impact on the expansion prices. It might also be kind of like the final capstone to this last decade or so of Titanic valuations across the NBA. Right, the Suns were valued at $4 billion when Matt Ishbia bought them last year. That's the most that an NBA team has been valued at when sold for a control sale, and so. I think the Celtics will go above that. They'll set a record for the NBA. Where it lands exactly, I don't know. You talk to smart people, they're like, hey, maybe it lands 4.75 billion, 5 billion. I talked to an NBA owner who thought it might land close to 6. If it gets that high, then maybe the NBA starts asking for 7 billion when it goes to expand in Vegas, which a lot of money. Again,
right.
Well, FanDuel has a lot of money invested in Vegas. So I'm assuming that by the time we get there, we're going to have some other looming questions.
Yeah, I mean, if people keep betting parlays on FanDuel, I'm sure FanDuel will do very well. Look, and the big thing, though, is the Celtics are also an odd case, right? They don't own their own arena. Now, real estate is a big proposition, part of the value prop. When you buy an NBA team, you want to own like essentially all of the revenue that comes with the team, from tickets to gate to media rights to all of it. The other part, it's a weird ownership structure. Like the Grousbecks own 30% roughly. According to my sources, Wick Grousbeck, who's the controlling owner right now, owns about 2%. His dad, Irv Grousbeck, who's 90, and they said the part of his estate planning, owns about 28% there. And you got a bunch of minority owners who have to kind of be dragged along in case of a sale. So this is a weird one, right? It might not be the perfect test case to see where everything goes. And if you talk to people who are interested in investing in NBA teams and sports teams altogether, they think prices are going to keep going up, but maybe not like hockey stick up and to the right as it's been, but just maybe like a little bit slower. And so if you see some slower growth, what does that mean? The new media rights deal should really help, but I think that's been baked into prices the last few years. People have been expecting it, although from what I understand, I think it came in a little bit higher than maybe, some people are expecting it. And the big question really, and this goes back to what we were talking about with the tax rates and how much you want to pay for this. If you are paying for a team to be really good and you're paying a lot, right? That means you're over the first apron, you're over the second apron. That's around generally the point where it's actually maybe not even profitable to own a team anymore. Again, if you're losing a few mil and the valuation of your team goes up by like $3 billion over the course of your ownership, small potatoes type of thing. But to some people that matters, right? And it gets into what and how you want to run your team. The Celtics and the Grousbeck family and this entire investor group bought him for $360 million 22 years ago. They're going to make, 15, 18 times that, right? When they eventually sell, depending on where this all lands. But they also, they're in that place where they're paying so much into the luxury tax where they might not be able to turn a profit year after year, year over year, just like when you're taking all that into consideration.
I love the fact that in the article, you kind of talked about these teams as they do become mini Disneylands, like in the way that there's so many different revenue sources, from fans, from merch, from food, from everything. But I think that's the part of the conversation that often gets forgotten, the fans, and how they interact with this team and these teams. And I'm particularly thinking about the media landscape. You're talking about that big deal, that's coming. Everyone knows it's going to shift over next year. How does this impact the way that fans interact with their favorite teams? Because
already hard to watch.
It's hard to watch. Like you're seeing people subscribe to one service to be able to see the rest of the league, NBA League Pass, and then they have to have a separate subscription to be able to watch their team locally. Mm-hmm. That doesn't make sense. Like, how is this all going to come together where folks are being able to keep the value of their teams, but also keep the value of the fans that help drive that value up?
I think you're going to have people begging to pay $150 a month for their old cable service. Like, it's going to be super annoying.
Yeah.
You're going to have, Amazon, you're going to have NBC, Peacock, ESPN, ABC, depending on the night of the week, right? Like League Pass, as you mentioned, there will be more games on national TV. Which will, I guess help things in one sense, but also it just means you're going to have to subscribe to more different services to be able to watch those games, right? And not to mention whatever happens with local TV, which at this point really is just super hard to predict. I don't know where that's going to end up. The Celtics are on NBC, regional NBC network. Diamond Sports has, I think, 14 teams that it has contracts with, and they're still in bankruptcy court, and they've been there for, I think, 2 years now or something like that. So like Where this all ends up is really hard to predict, but I think as of right now, you're basically saying like, hey, I'm going to have to subscribe to all these things if I'm a big NBA fan who wants to watch my team every night. And that's going to be annoying. And I think people have subscription fatigue.